In certain African cultures, wealth can actually be displayed, and this might sound crazy, but by the number of bricks that you have. In this culture, if you see your neighbor stacking up a lot of bricks, that means that they can add on to their house and expand their footprint, and that can be an indicator of wealth. Similarly, the number of goats that people have can also be an indicator of wealth, because a goat is something that people can sell and that they can return profit. There's milk, etc., fur perhaps. And so the number of goats is traditionally an indicator of wealth. That's not really the case in our American consumerist society. The indicators of wealth that we typically think of are fancy cars, big houses, fancy clothes, etc., etc. But just because someone has a really nice car doesn't mean they've figured it all out. They might just be drowning in debt, because oftentimes the nicer someone's car is, the more debt that they have associated with it, or the higher their monthly payment can be. Not in every case. When I was in the gym this morning, there was a guy who had a fresh pair of Jordans, and he worked there, kind of cleaning up the bathroom and making sure the counters were wiped down and everything looked really nice. Super nice dude. And I don't want this to sound judgy, but my guess is he's probably not making a lot of income for this job that he's in, yet he's probably wearing these $200 shoes, and I'm not sure, did he pay cash, did he use a credit card, etc. But anyway, hopefully you get my point. Seeing this kind of thing can make us compare ourselves and feel like, oh, I don't have a fresh pair of Jordans. Am I doing okay? Am I behind? So you're not alone in feeling this way. Many people look around and think others have more wealth. It's a common feeling, but often based on illusion. So let's put this in perspective with a little math. Imagine buying a brand new of Jordans for $200. If you pay with cash, $200 and you're good to go. However, if you put those on a credit card with a 20% interest rate and only make minimum payments, those shoes could easily cost you $250 or more. This doesn't really make much sense, but oftentimes people can fall into this trap, and this can be especially a burden on those with lower incomes. The pressure to maintain appearances, keep up with the Joneses, do the next trendy thing can often lead to poor financial decisions that oftentimes impact the middle class and poor more adversely. It's obviously not just shoes. It can be home stuff, beauty procedures, going out to eat all the time, all of it. Over time, this can easily lead to thousands spent on stuff just to impress other people. When people spend money on flashy things to look cool, they miss out on the opportunity to not only save for the future, buy a house and get an education, but really to turn down their financial stress and give themselves more freedom. Instead of making these smart choices, they often create this negative downward spiral where they buy things on credit, they get a compliment, they feel good about their purchase, and then they rinse and repeat, getting into more and more debt to maintain this facade of flashiness. Whereas real wealth is actually increasing your net worth rather than looking for someone's approval at a stoplight. Side note, obviously there's nothing wrong with buying Jordans. The point is, using our money, the goal is to make your life actually better instead of wasting money on trinkets for others' approval. Let me tell you about one of the largest wealth killers in our society today. And no, it's not even lack of budgeting or the $5 daily latte. Ironically, it happens to at least appear to be a wealth indicator. Cars is what I'm talking about. Over 1/5 of new vehicles in the United States were leased in 2023. The average new vehicle loan is around $31,000, and the average used vehicle is around $19,000. And still, we look at someone's flashy car and automatically assume they must be way better off than us financially. Let's compare 3 scenarios. Number 1, we'll look at leasing a luxury car. Number 2, we'll talk about getting a loan on a reliable car. And then number 3 is buying a reliable used car in cash. If you lease a brand new car for $400 a month over a 36-month period, you will pay $14,400 for that. That's without even calculating any interest on those lease payments, by the way. And at the end of the period, you'll have nothing to show for it because you won't own the car. So you've essentially paid $14,400 to rent a car for 3 years. However, if you purchase a car with a $400 payment at 6% interest for 36 months, sure, you'll pay a little bit more money. It'll be $15,770, but by the end of that period, you'll own the car. You'll own a, maybe $15,000 asset that you can then resell later in the future if you need to, or continue to drive it until the wheels fall off, and ideally save the $400 that you were paying. Or if you buy a car for $8,000 in cash and instead put the $400 a month into an S&P 500 fund, get a 10% rate of return for 36 months, you'd end up with $16,712 in your pocket. In the end, owning might be more money up front, but it gives you something to show for it at the end of the day. As you can see, buying a used car might not look fancy, but it can save you thousands of dollars. And if we can contribute some money into the stock market at the same time, you can end up much wealthier than someone who's just using all their excess cash flow to buy a fancy vehicle. Another illusion is the social media highlight reel. Social media can play a huge part in distorting reality. We see curated images of luxury and success, but these are just the highlight reels. People rarely post about their financial struggles or debts. We've all heard about influencers using a Lambo in an ad on Instagram only to find out later that the car was rented. Even in some cases, we'll see the rental car sticker very small in the window if you're looking closely. As people earn more, they often spend more with a term called lifestyle inflation. As your income goes up, we think about Parkinson's law here. It's very easy to have your expenses creep up just alongside your income. And as a reminder, Parkinson's law states that work expands to fill the time allowed. So if you have a project to get done in a week, it'll take you a week to get done. Similar with our income. I say all the time that money is like a gas. We have to constantly tell it where to go, otherwise it will evaporate, left to our own devices. Sometimes lifestyle inflation can get the best of us, especially if we're used to living on credit cards. Things can go out of hand very quickly and you can end up with way more debt than you thought possible. Meanwhile, the wise thing to do is to keep your lifestyle the same or increase it slightly in comparison to your income. So bills, spending is all a fixed number, meaning it won't change from week to week, month to month. So as income increases, you can see that the default is it gets saved and invested automatically. So I'm not here to say don't increase your lifestyle, but I think if people can adhere to every time you get a pay raise, even if it's a cost of living raise, to just save and invest half of that. Use the other to increase your lifestyle, whether that's going out to eat more or increasing your vacations or whatever else you want to do. So what do we do when we feel not as well off as other people? Oftentimes, and happens to me too, we get impostor syndrome that can make us feel like, are we even enough? Are we even qualified to record this YouTube video right now? I was actually on the call with another financial coach this morning, a friend of mine, and she's financially independent, which means she doesn't have to work for money. She doesn't have to do this financial coaching that she loves, but she still struggles with a scarcity mindset. And so do I. We all do. We're all on a lifelong journey of increasing and growing our mindset around these concepts. But she told me specifically that she worries that the other shoe is going to drop and someone's going to take her money away from her in some way, shape, or form. So one of the things that I tell myself to combat this almost on a daily basis, if I'm feeling insecure, if I'm feeling the imposter syndrome creep in, I tell myself I have what I need for today. That can go a long way in kind of quelling that imposter syndrome. There's also a fantastic book written around this concept, really geared towards high achievers, people that are doing really big things that can always feel like they're chasing the next thing. The book is by Dan Sullivan. It's called The Gap and the Gain. He talks about we can default to feeling like we're always in the gap. We're always looking for the next thing, the next hit, the next dopamine. And when we are programming ourselves to think like that, we will never be satisfied. So the most useful thing to do is to look back, to look in the rearview mirror, to think, what have I done today? What have I done in the last month? Where was I last year? And reflect with gratitude on those wins. This shifts our focus from the gap to the gain. So I literally have a reminder on my phone that said, what are 3 wins? Every day at 9:30, that rings. I don't necessarily stop what I'm doing every single time and go through a journaling exercise, but it does prompt my subconscious to be looking for wins, whether that's, hey, I drank all the water I needed to today, I went to the gym, I got a new client, etc. It could be anything, but programming ourselves to look for wins in our life is monumental for our overall well-being. So yeah, recognizing these wins helps us understand and remind ourselves that we don't have to constantly keep up with the Joneses, to live a rich and happy life. What we need is to align our expenses with our ultimate priorities. It means spending our money in ways that are actually reflective of the things we actually value. Like if you have a favorite hobby, spending money towards that hobby. For me, that's drumming. That's one of my favorite things to do. Maybe for you, it's gardening or something similar, or cooking. If you love these things, it makes sense to spend money in these areas, ideally without feeling guilty about it. Again, with healthy boundaries. And when you look on Instagram and see someone traveling to an exotic location while you're out in the garden, or maybe like me, you're setting up your brand new drum set, you can remind yourself that it doesn't mean that you have to drop everything and travel the world, or that they are even better off than you are. It just means you have different priorities. They travel, and I get to play drums and spend several $100s on a single cymbal if I want to. Now, if you are a six-figure earner and building wealth is one of your priorities, consider applying for one-on-one coaching with me to automate your finances so that your money can finally fuel your dreams. Now, there's a link below in the description if you'd like to apply, and maybe you're not making, six figures just yet. There is a do-it-yourself course that I've got also linked down below if you want to check that out. Now, if you're watching this video at work, you can check out the link above to see if you need to go clock back in or still have to go to work. Maybe you're ready to retire right now. And if you've watched this far, please like and subscribe. It truly does make a difference in getting more eyeballs on these videos so I can help and serve more people. Thanks for watching.